Welcome to another edition of the magazine. Today we're here with Nils Isaksen and Frank Fostin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
So can you start out by telling us something about yourselves?
Well, I'm a retired electrician, 50 years, and I moved to town when I got married, and that's 48 years ago.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And I enjoy the town. I love the town, especially the architecture of the buildings.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
Yes, we are.
Very lucky.
Very lucky.
I'm Frank Fostin. I'm a retired maintenance person here from the Town Hall. I spent 15 years here. I was a resident for about 40 years here in the town of Fairhaven. I currently live in New Bedford. I am now the vice president of the Fairhaven Improvement Association, and that's what brought me into getting involved into this project.
So yeah, tell us about this project. It's quite a history with this project.
Yes. About 10 years ago, my father-in-law, Al Benak, and I came to a meeting, and when we went outside, it was dark. I said, boy, these buildings are so nice. We should really think about lighting them up or something. And so Al, being a art person, and he was the town curator, and he said the best thing to do for a picture is light it, put light on it. And we got these two beautiful buildings.
Yes.
And that's how it started. He and I got together, and he being my father-in-law, you know, we had some good times. And then when he passed, it kind of like, you know, the feeling wasn't there anymore. And then the candle got relit by Keith Sylvia and Historical Commission. And I came, and now here we are.
That's great. And Frank, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, actually, I heard about it, and being on the Fairhaven Improvement Association and the history of it for 142 years, and getting into the projects similar to this, like down the fort with the cannons and the bathhouses down the Fort Phoenix and everything else. Personally, I wanted to get involved because when I worked here, I thought this was unbelievable and everything else, and I thought that was a great idea. And I wanted the Fairhaven Improvement Association to be involved with it, or at least have a representative from the association to be involved in the project.
So that would be considered phase one of this project?
Yes.
And what did phase one incorporate?
Phase one incorporated, you know, finding the right type of light.
Okay.
And many meetings with the Historical Commission, thinking and looking at lights and, you know, finding a lighting representative. And we found the representative, and when the sidewalks were dug up, we had the conduit put underneath the brick area so we didn't have to disturb the bricks. Once we determined the light and the style, we went out and we got donations, very generous people in town. This is all town, non-town money. It's all personal money that people thought was entrusted on the project and thought it was a good idea to light up. And so we found a rep, we got all the lights, we did the work, and it was all volunteer work. Everybody donated time, some donated material. Pat Card donated his heavy equipment, which was, thank goodness, right?
Yep.
And then Frank, myself, Keith, and two others, Wayne and Gary, volunteered their time. And we had a good time doing it.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't like, you know, it was just fun doing it. You know.
It's a small but mighty group.
Yes. Yeah.
Very dedicated to do all that volunteer work.
Yes.
Yeah, we were here after sundown quite a few nights, but we had a good time. We got along together, we joke around and everything else, and that made the experience even better. Yep.
Yeah.
And so when did the lights get lit?
That was an interesting evening. It was October. It was late October, and everything was done. And we had Mrs. Blanchard, who was Doris Blanchard, who was an employee of town in the clerk department, and she was 99 years old. and she threw the switch, and the lights came on. And it was a great night, you know, and thank goodness, you know, we had someone like her,
Right.
you know, and she donated a large sum of money for into the project also, and it was fun.
It was great. I remember being there and seeing the lights go on, and it really it just really accentuates the town hall, especially.
And we had a fair amount of people, even though it was raining that night, if
Right.
you remember.
I do.
Yes, and you know, it's, you know, I was told a long time ago, Rome wasn't built in a day. And my scope, I like to see the project continue. So lighting up, you know, I mean, you come down here in the wintertime when it's snowing out, is with the lights in the building, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Picture
you know.
perfect.
Yes,
It is.
exactly right.
So your group wanted to do more, especially incorporating the Fairhaven Improvement Association as well. So what more are you doing now?
We're doing what we call phase 2.
Okay.
Which is the library side, with the exact same style lights. Everything will be the exact same thing. There is conduit in the ground already on Walnut and William Street, so it's just a matter of getting together. You know, I have 4 lights that people have purchased. Kathy Lopes, Pat Carr, and my older brother, John Isaksen, you know, bought a light, and FIA bought a light. Fairhaven Improvement
Nice.
also purchased a light. I didn't have to twist their arm too bad. But, you know, so now we're looking at getting phase 2
Okay.
completed. And I have 2 more lights that are available if anyone's interested, or just, you know, interested in the project to come and, you know, donate, you know.
What amazed me about the whole thing too, because I wasn't there the first part of the first phase, there's a lot of coordination that goes along with this. And we've met with the Eversource people and trying to pass ideas through them, and they're telling us what we can and cannot do. Nils updates the select board
Yes.
and make sure that everybody knows what's going on there. There's been meetings with the library and to get permission to do this. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes with it besides just putting it up.
Right.
A lot of communication.
Yes.
A lot of community, a lot of different groups that are involved in this whole process.
Yes, DPW.
Yep.
You know, I want to make sure they're involved so they know what's going on. I don't want any surprises.
Yeah, right.
We don't need any surprises. You know, that's why I'm in touch, you know, with the select board. I've gone to the NFIA, so they're aware, they know what's going on. I want everybody to know what's going on, so
Sure.
someone doesn't come down and say, gee, what are you guys digging for? Or, you know, it's out in the open.
Right. And this is a true benefit to our community.
Yes, I feel it is. You know, you light the way and people will come.
So what do the lights look like? And what is the timeline for this new installation?
That's hard to say. It's once I order the lights, it takes 20 weeks for the lights to be made.
Oh, wow.
They're all American made. Everything with those lights are American.
Oh, wow. Great.
There's no overseas or anything. Everything is American made. I've seen the factory where they're made. They're down in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And there's a lot of work that goes into the lights, you know, because they're all cast iron. So they're going to be here long after, you know, their warranty is for 75 years.
Okay.
And that's the good thing about the lights. And they're all LED, and they have that nice warm glow about them.
And also, to note, they're the company that made the lights, their national pamphlet that they have that they pass around, the lights out front of this building here, they are in that pamphlet.
Oh, that's
I guess
great.
The face of the
That's
of the
right.
pamphlet. So this building and those lights are nationwide.
Oh, that's
Yep.
great.
Yeah.
That's
So-
excellent.
Yep.
Little Fairhaven has gone nation.
That's
National.
awesome. That's
Yep.
awesome.
And they even have a little insert of, you know, about Henry.
Oh,
You know,
great.
the town hall, you know, Henry Huddleston Rogers,
Sure.
which is good.
Getting the word out there.
Oh, yes, big time.
Yep.
Lighting the way.
Lighting the way.
Lighting the way.
It enhances the historical part of the town and everything else as far as the buildings and all that stuff. And one of the things that I was about was the safety of the area too. So it lights up the sidewalks. So with people leaving meetings and et cetera, it's a lot safer all the way around.
Sure. So the cost of this project is not cheap. So you're looking for donations, or maybe someone, a viewing audience, would like to donate, maybe in memory of someone, or a light post. And what would the cost on that be, approximately?
The light post, the post and the light is $5,150.
Okay.
But you don't have to buy, a friend or another family member could buy half and you buy half. So, you can split the cost. And we have done that. And whoever buys a light, there are plaques. I didn't bring a plaque with me. I totally slipped my mind. But there will be plaques going on each light that the people purchase.
All right.
So that plaque will be there for at least 25 years.
Sure.
So, people in town will see, wow, so-and-so, I know that person, or, it's just not, it's going to be much larger than how it is.
But it's a nice memory.
Right.
Yes.
It's a nice memory, and it's a way to keep, maybe even other organizations in town may want to
Exactly.
participate with this. So after they see this, so how do they get in touch with you both?
They can get in touch with me personally, or they can get in touch with the Fairhaven Improvement Association.
Right. And it's fairhavenimprovement.org to get in touch through our
FairhavenImprovement.org.
Improvement Association, and we'll get it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
He or I will probably get it. We'll get and we'll, meet with the people, and, any donation is large, small, every little bit helps.
Of course.
Is
Of
very
course.
appreciative, and we're lighting up the town, and it's not town money, it's people money.
Right.
It's
Right.
the residents of Fairhaven. I want to stress that, because that's very important. Because people are saying the town has money. The town doesn't have money. The people, we the people.
Well, it's nice. It's nice that a community group is doing this, and to really light up Fairhaven, and to really, the history of even the lights look historical.
Right.
Yes.
So it's good that you met with the Historical Commission. You've covered all your bases.
Yes.
Yes, we've even met with Alyssa too,
Yes.
and because Fairhaven has had movies, and I was involved in the one that was in here. So
That's right,
hopefully
yeah.
we can get more of that coming into the center of town.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Nils and Frank, thank you so much. I hope that I will be also making a donation to this.
Thank you very much.
MO Life, and I've got some other people that are in the works with, so that we can maybe have one dedicated to people with disabilities in the
Thank you
town of
very much.
Fairhaven.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
That's
Yeah.
very,
So that's what we're working on.
and you'll be there forever.
Be there forever. Absolutely.
Your friends.
So thank you. Please, if people are out there, any donation is a great one.
Yes.
So please donate to the Light Fund, and get in touch with Nils or Frank. And just thank you both very much, and your group, for your dedication to enhancing our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the magazine. Today we're here with Michael Kelly from the Fairhaven Historical Commission. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you very much.
So tell us a little bit something about yourself and the Fairhaven Historical Commission.
So I'm born and raised in Fairhaven. I lived down near Fort Phoenix, went to Rogers School, graduated from Fairhaven High School longer ago than I care to admit, and joined the Fairhaven Historical Commission about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And the Fairhaven Historical Commission is tasked with caring for and preserving some of the town's treasures, such as the schoolhouse that we're in, as well as Fort Phoenix and a couple of other buildings as well.
Good, thank you. Well, take us back to the beginning. like what the schoolhouse was, back to the Oxford Village, the first district. So tell us something about that.
Yeah, it's an amazing story when you think about what this town must have looked like back then. So 1828 is the year that this school was built. The land on which it was built was purchased for $20, and the school was built for $520.
Wow.
So, in today's money, that actually was fairly significant, but at the time, it was certainly a state-of-the-art school. One of the nice things about this particular schoolhouse was that it had an outhouse. Most of them did not, and you had to just find a bush and hope for the best. But this one had amenities like that. The school day was long. It usually started around 8 in the morning and often went until about 5 p.m. Classrooms at that time would be about 30 children, and they would have been ages 5 to 16. So if you can imagine trying to manage that level of difference in ages and just readiness for schooling, et cetera, it must have been quite challenging.
Oh, I bet. How many schools were in town at that time?
I believe that there were 6 total. There are still 2 in existence. This one, of course, which is a museum. The other one that still is standing is on Sconticut Neck Road and is a private residence.
Oh, okay.
The others were all raised when they were no longer being used.
Okay. And what were the age groups that were attending those other schools?
Same. It would have been about the same. Yep. So at that time, the concept of the one-room schoolhouse, what's challenging, I think, for a lot of modern people is to think that, we think about schoolhouses the way that we went to school. So, and actually much the way that this school here is set up, like rows of students all kind of facing the teacher and learning. That actually would not have been the case from about 1828 when the school opened until about 1865, 70. The school actually was set up more in a horseshoe with the students all facing in. And most of the education was actually self-directed. The teacher was here mostly to maintain discipline and to listen to recitations when a student was ready to present themselves as having learned the material. But the ideas of curriculum and a teacher standing and presenting to a classroom, that really was post-Civil War when it came to that type of education.
So tell us a little bit something about the very famous student that came to the schoolhouse.
Yes, Manjiro Nakahama was actually in this classroom. He actually wasn't here for very long because his family then moved out to Sconticut Neck, and I presume he attended the one that's now somebody's home. But he was initially in this room, and yes, Manjiro, if you don't know the story, was a young boy, 14 years old. He was out fishing with 3 other men off the coast of Japan and was shipwrecked and was picked up by a New Bedford whale ship and brought home here to Fairhaven, where he was educated, learned English, and ended up going back to Japan eventually and assisting with the negotiations between Matthew Perry and Japan that opened trade between the United States and Japan.
Very famous person.
Very famous person, famous person. And, I think what a lot of Americans don't realize, really quite a national hero in Japan, which is why we get so many visitors coming here to the schoolhouse from Japan.
Do you get a lot of Japanese visitors?
We do. We usually have groups come every month during the summer months in particular, but I'd say probably between 30 to 50 Japanese visitors will come to the schoolhouse during a given year.
That's great.
Yeah.
So tell us about the conditions in this schoolhouse. Like, what was it like a typical day?
A typical day, as I mentioned before, would have been long. In the wintertime, it would have been cold. There's no heat, there's no electricity. There's a wood-burning stove here. From what I understand, if you were sitting close to the stove, you were too hot, and if you were far from the stove, you were too cold. So I imagine it was a challenging environment, although probably at that time people were a bit more used to that kind of environment. Drinking water was from a bucket in the front of the classroom. Everybody shared out of the same ladle. The light would have been provided when needed by whale oil lamps until about the 1870s, at which point it would have switched over to kerosene. So I imagine it was a fairly cold, somewhat dark, and probably fairly smelly place to have school in.
And what was the school year like? Like, was it like the typical school year that we know about now, or is it something different?
It was a little bit different. Certainly there would have been breaks for both harvest and for planting, so in the fall and in the spring. The big difference was that until much later in this school's history, attendance was not mandatory. Oh. So you probably would have had, I believe, roughly 50% attendance on any given day. It really wasn't tracked or enforced. So so in that respect, it would have been different. But again, it was a long day. Kids would have had an hour for lunch. If you were close enough, you could have walked home, but most probably just would have brought their lunch and sat on the lawn.
So in 1883, the school districts were abolished and replaced by town boards.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, at that time, we started to see the migration of students from schools like this to the newly built Rogers School, and then eventually Oxford School as well. So, and that's really also the time when schooling that we're more familiar with started to be the norm around the country. So you would have had more classrooms divided by ages.
Okay.
You would have had a curriculum that was based on either a state or a local jurisdiction's idea of what education should look like. So the sort of haphazard manner of the district schoolhouses became more codified and more firm in terms of how it was administered.
I see. And so the schoolhouse came to an end with education?
It did. Yes, it did. Around in the 1890s, this was no longer being used as a school. At that time, it was being used by several local groups, including religious communities as a meeting house, and it served a few other purposes. And eventually, in the middle 1900s, it became a tool shed for the DPW.
Oh, it did?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't until later that it was restored back to this schoolhouse format. And there's a picture, if you come and visit, there's a picture on the wall from 1890 that we used when we were refiguring back into the schoolhouse. So this setting, as you see here, is very similar to what it looked like in 1890.
Okay, great. And so now it's more of a museum and a tourist attraction.
That's
so
correct.
How can people come and visit the schoolhouse?
Well, it's only opened on a volunteer basis, so we do have some limited openings, and as I mentioned, there's no heat or electricity, so in the winter it gets very cold in here.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So right now the Historical Commission is opening roughly every third Saturday from, I'd say, about April until November. So we just had our last public opening last week.
Okay.
But we'll open again in the springtime when it's comfortable to actually be in here.
And what do you find the most fascinating thing about the schoolhouse?
I think there's, for me, it's literally this kind of snapshot of the history of the town. But also, I think some of the stories about the teachers that were here are pretty fascinating.
Okay.
Most of the teachers were young women. They would have been between the age of 17 and 22 for the most part. Once you were married, you were no longer allowed to be a teacher.
Oh.
So they would have been single women. And they often came from other towns, because if they came from Fairhaven, the odds were that they literally were sitting in one of these seats the year before and then expected to teach the same class. So in the interest of discipline, that generally didn't happen. So they would have come in from other towns. But I think one of the things that's most fascinating to me is at times when they didn't have a young woman to teach, they would bring in a whaleman who was on shore leave from one of the whaling ships.
Wow.
And I can only imagine what it would have been like to have a whaler teaching a class to all these kids. When you think about a time, which the 1820s to the 1850s, most people never went more than 20 miles from the place that they were born their entire lives. Being taught by someone who had literally circumnavigated the world must have been quite an experience.
I'm sure that was very fascinating for them.
Yeah, and I'm sure discipline was not a problem.
I'm sure they all behaved well that day. So tell me some other features. As I look around, there's so much to see in the schoolhouse, and it really has a historical nature to it. And so tell us something like what people point out when you give a tour.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things in this, and I always like to say that it's a very interactive museum. Like we do want people to pick things up, as long as it's not in a case or made out of glass. We want people to pick things up, and there are books here from the 1850s through the 1880s. You can flip through them and look what it was literally like, the books that the kids would have used at that time. We have slates. We have original slates from the 1800s, but we also have modern ones so that people can try them out. And interestingly enough, I'm going to reach out here. we have, these are soapstone pencils, which is what kids used to actually use to write with on slates.
Oh, wow.
We often think of chalk because
Yeah.
that's what we grew up with, chalkboards, but chalk doesn't give you the dexterity to actually make numbers and writing. So they use these, and it would etch a small line onto the slate, which then could be erased. So
Oh, wow.
I encourage people to come in and try it out because it's really kind of an experience. Of course, it does make a horrible squeaking noise, so I can't even imagine what
Oh,
it was
wow.
like to have 30 kids all doing it at once. Other items, there's in addition to books, we have old oil lamps that would have shown what the lighting would have been like in here, as well as pens and quills that would have been used for writing. So there's a lot of interesting things within the schoolhouse itself.
And the chalkboard itself is 3 phases to it.
Yes, yeah. There's the room is surrounded by chalkboards, which is interesting. Again, these chalkboards probably were not here from 1820 until about 1850 or 60. They would have been put in later when the teacher would have started actually physically teaching the classes in different subject matters. Again, most of these chalkboards, I believe, came out of Oxford School as part of the renovation. So, yeah.
Excellent. Great. And what other things are in town that the Historical Commission, Historical Society is involved in?
So we manage several buildings around town. 2 of them are firehouses. One is on Spring Street and the other is on Washington Street. Those 2 antique firehouses actually house the old fire trucks that sometimes you see at Homecoming Day and other Fairhaven Town events. The one on Washington Street actually was the first town jail.
Okay. Wow.
So there's an interesting history there. And then at one point it switched over from being in jail to being run by the Fairhaven Protecting Society. And that was an interesting organization that they were tasked with going to a home after a fire and recovering as much of the furniture and personal belongings as they could out of the damaged building. So that was their role. And then the one up on Spring Street was more of a traditional firehouse. We also manage the property at Fort Phoenix, so we make sure that the fort itself is cared for, that the cannon and the apparatus that they sit on, et cetera, those are all managed by the town and the Historical Commission. And then there's the Academy building itself, which sits on the lawn of Fairhaven High School. It also has a renovated classroom from the time period of when the Academy would have been in full swing. That would have actually been an interesting place because if you actually finished your schooling here at the Old Stone Schoolhouse and you intended to go on into medicine or law or any of those professions, you would have then gone on to the Academy and then hopefully to college.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for all this great information. We truly appreciate it. And I know that if people want to get in touch with someone, they can probably email and get in touch with the Historical Commission and maybe even join the Historical Commission if they have an interest in that as well.
Yeah, the commission is a government appointed agency within the town of Fairhaven. We have 7 members, but people have other draws on their time and their commitments. It's all volunteer. So
All volunteer.
So sometimes people leave and then we need to refill the spot. So it's great to just keep an eye on our website to make sure that if there's an opening and you're interested, we're always happy to welcome new members.
Well, thank you, Michael. And thank you for walking through the story of the Old Stone Schoolhouse. We really appreciate it. And we value your volunteerism and your commitment to our community. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.